Yeah, I mean, you watch how easily um, they accomplish some things, and it's reflection of a really well coached team with really experienced players, and they know uh, they know who's supposed to get the ball, and they know when and where they're supposed to get it, um, and they're smart defensively. Yeah, they're all the things that a team at at that stage of their program, they're everything that they should be. And um, they came in here and did something that very few people have been able to do. And during that first quarter, it was it was evident that I don't physically we couldn't match up with them tonight. Plain and simple.
Megan struggled tonight, went 3 for 16. It seems like just in these bigger games that she hasn't really just been able to find her shot, or the defense has been able to stop her. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about that and how what you need to see from her moving forward?
I mean, what can you say? When two really good teams are playing, there's a couple players on their team that have to play really, really well and have to make shots, and there's a couple players on your team that have to play well and make shots, and theirs did tonight, and ours didn't. Why is that? It's probably not an easy answer, but yeah, if Meg wants to be what I think she can be, then yeah, she needs to make those shots in these games, for sure.
When you beat Oregon in the Elite Eight a few years ago, you talked about Kelly's on the right track. Matter of time until they make Final Fours. Obviously, made a Final Four last year.
Yeah.
You see where they are now, obviously, not just this year, but with a huge recruiting class coming in next year. You have obviously one of your own, and UConn is what it is. I'm just wondering how you see the two programs at this point relative to one another, just in the big picture.
I mean, there's a lot of good programs out there today, and they've certainly made the most progress quicker, probably, than anybody else. And I don't, like, as you said, I wasn't the least bit surprised. You get a generational type player like Sabrina, that kind of changes accelerates the process, so that's remains to be seen what happens after that, and not that the a player like that's not easy to replace, and yet at the same time, what Kelly's doing up there and the way they're building is not going to be dependent on one player, but one player can make you, as I know, trust me. So they got a lot of things going for them, and they got really good, really fast, and they're not going away. They're not going anywhere.
Do you see Paige as that type of player?
I don't know. That remains to be seen.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, with a game like this where there's such an easy headline, because of the record-breaking loss, what do you tell your players to kind of just help them not look at that and not think about that?
Actually, I tell them they should look at that. Like, I'm not one of these, people that thinks if you avoid looking at something, it makes it go away. And it's not my job to make them feel better right now. My job is to be realistic with them and say, pick up the paper tomorrow, go on social media, read about what happened, see what happened here tonight, and then deal with it. Plain and simple. You were part of it. Can't pretend it didn't happen, and you can't pretend you weren't a part of it. You know, you were a part of it. Because if we'd have won that game, you wouldn't, you couldn't wait to read about how great you were. All of us. So, yeah, I'm not one to ever hide kids. Kids play games, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And when you win, everybody wants to feel great, and everybody wants the adulation that comes from winning. Coaches are the same way. And when you lose and you get your butt kicked, the other side of that, you should feel the other side of that too. To remind you that there's two sides to every game. Otherwise, you end up, I only want to be around when we win. I don't want to face the music when we lose. That's not real life. Well, it's real life in today's world, but not real life in the real life world.
Geno, you wore a Kobe Bryant shirt today, obviously, for reasons. Just talk about that for a second. What made you want to wear that to honor him before this game today and during the game?
I was hoping to live vicariously through him, that he would come back, his spirit would come back and enter into all my players and infuse them with the work ethic and the tenacity and the competitiveness that he had. But didn't play out that way. Someone sent it to me that was at that Lakers game the other night when they put all those out, and so because they sent it to me and because they thought enough of it, I decided I should wear it.
Geno, Ruthie Hebert, I'm sure was a big part of this stay. How does she go off for 22 and 12 and one of obviously really dominating performance?
Yeah. I love when I hear the people say, she can only score from like 5 feet. That's like saying, I remember Bob Cousy could only go right, but nobody could keep him from going right. So Ruthie gets the shot she wants and knows how to get it, and she gets it as many times as she can and then makes it. That's a sign of a hell of a player. And today she faced very little competition in the lane. So it was, it was a senior like her having her way against our guys in the lane. It's a big change from when she was a freshman, obviously. She's a hell of a player.
Geno, you guys were outscored 44-14 in the paint. There's
Yeah.
probably about 3 or 4 stories in there.
Yeah.
They ran a lot off the pick and roll. You got, physically outmanned.
Yeah.
Didn't score. They scored. Which part bothered you the most, or any insight you can give me? What does those numbers tell you?
Well, to really be honest, one of the most difficult things in basketball to defend is a really, really, really good post player that knows how to play with a really, really good guard that knows how to play. And when the two of them are in a pick and roll and they both make the right decisions at the right time because they've been doing it so long together, like Stockton and Malone, that kind of thing. So you say, well, what's the right defense for that? Well, you hope they miss. But there are things that you need to be able to do to try to minimize that, and we couldn't do it tonight. We were out of position. We were late. We made the wrong moves a couple times. And they're so good, they took advantage of every mistake we made. It's a fact of life. We're not going to be able to score a lot of points in the lane. We just aren't. We just don't have that capability right now. So, I said going into the game that if we could hold them to, they make 9 a game, I think. Yeah, I think they make 9 a game. And I thought if we could hold them to like 3 or 4, and we can make like 15, we would have a chance. But, they're just too good. And their big kids are just too good. Hebert and Sabali are too good for us. We don't have anybody at that level right now. We don't. And we certainly didn't have anybody at that level tonight.
Just going back to the Bryant shirt, you mentioned how you got it and the significance. What do you do with that now after this game?
They told me I have to send it back. I had one shot at it, they said. They want it back. So it'll be in the mail tomorrow. Unfortunately.
Obviously, you guys have a few days before the next game, and then another big matchup on Monday.
Yeah.
Obviously, a completely different team with its own challenges, but
Yeah.
what do you want your team to take away from tonight that hopefully they can try and use on a week from today?
We, I think the times that we play really, really good defense, we can't get any points. We can't get any shots to drop. And then when shots don't go in, we get another stop and we miss again. Then we get another stop and we miss again. And then the third or fourth time, the same shots are open, and now they won't take them because they're afraid to miss them. That's really immature, That's the sign of a really immature young team. They don't want to miss. So I asked them one time during timeout, I said, we're trying to do the impossible. We're trying to win without scoring. I've never coached a team that could do that, win without scoring. Then when we can get some baskets, we can get some buckets, we can't get stops at the other end. So we're not in sync. We're against the really, really good teams like this, like we've played this year, a lot of the really, really good teams that we've played. Every time we make a mistake, they take advantage of it. And we have to play more of a flawless game, and we haven't. And we need to be tougher. That's the bottom line. We're not big enough, so we need to be physically tougher. And we're not. And Friday night against Memphis, that game was a pain in the butt down in Memphis, and it won't be easy up here. And then Monday night at South Carolina, they've never beaten us. So what do you think that atmosphere is going to be like? So what do I want them to take out of this? Helmet and chin strap. Because they're going to need both.
Geno, what are your feelings about Anna and Aubrey? Tonight's learning experience for them against a bunch of seniors.
You're going to get what you're going to get. It's going to, Anna's getting there little by little every game. And there's going to be ups and downs. And Aubrey gives us stuff that we need on the floor. We just have to polish her up a little bit on the offensive end because that's a little bit of a struggle right now on the offensive end. But on the other end, she gives us some things that we need. She has some of that. But we've got to get a little bit more out of her on the other end because otherwise it's a wash, We need her to be more productive on the offensive end. That'll come.
Geno, in 2007, Sylvia Fowles dominated Tina Charles.
Yeah.
And Tina took that picture and kept it in her locker room for the next few years. Is this something that Olivia has kind of that mentality where she can take and learn from this and use it as motivation? Do you have those kind of guys on this team that can do that?
No. But you can ask her. You'll probably get a chance to talk to her in a minute. But I would hope that that would be the case, but I'd be shocked. I don't know that that's the world. I haven't seen it. I hope so, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Geno, just with Sabrina, she's making dramatically more shots in the paint than she did last year, where she was obviously already an impressive player. What do you see in that game that's developed of hers, and how does a guard do that? How does a guard take? She went from 45% from two last year to she's around 61% this year.
How do you do that? Well, one, she's what's the word? She's savvy enough to know this is when I shoot it and this is when I don't. And this is a good shot and she took some bad shots tonight too. And that's going to happen when you have the ball as much as she has. And when you go in the lane and there's a lot of traffic in there. And she didn't get to the free throw line tonight as much as she does some other nights because there was nobody near her most of the night, you know. But I think it's most good guards have to be able to do a couple things. One, they have to be able to be lights out three-point shooters, which on the move, which that's not been her strength. Or they have to be able to create offense some other ways. And with her, it's get in the lane, get a bucket, get fouled, get an assist. And the object tonight going in was, okay, look, let's not let her get 20 and 15, because now that's a lot of points that she's responsible for. And I don't know how many assists she finished with tonight. 9. So she still got her 9 assists, but she didn't get as many points. So they didn't get their average, but they didn't need him. She's just smart. She's smart. She waits for you to make a mistake. A lot of guards, they go so fast that they don't give you a chance to make a mistake. She goes at a pace where she waits and waits and waits. And when you screw up, she takes advantage of it.
Time for 2 more.
Geno, a follow on Sabrina. You mentioned she's a generational player. You just laid out a lot of the reasons why. As someone who has coached and developed most all of the generational players of the last generation, I realize there's still a prize to play for this season, but where does she, for you, start to rank among those names that you've been around and seen where, again, I realize there's a prize to play for, but there's a whole lot of people here for this game, and she's a big reason why.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that, you know, as I was saying, she doesn't do it with like tremendous foot speed. Like she doesn't run by you and she doesn't jump over you. She does it more old school basketball wise, and those players are few and far in between. And she beats you with her head, her eyes, and she beats you with her relentlessness and how tough she is. So I just said like 4 or 5 things that maybe 2 or 3 players in the country have, and she happens to have all those things. And if you've got those things, and you're living in a world where very few people that you're playing against have even one of those things or 2 of those things, you got a huge advantage every night you step on the floor, and that's kind of where she is.
Geno, I don't know which timeout you were referring to earlier, but the very first one, when they hit you with a 10-0 run, you have to call timeout. What did you see from that opening segment, and what were you trying to get across to your players when you gathered them for that timeout?
There's just so many things. You know, teams that are really good, and we've done a poor job with our group this year of helping them communicate better So there were 3 or 4 in a row defensive possessions where we screwed them all up, every which way you can imagine. Totally opposite of what we went over the last 3 days. So I called timeout, and I mean, it got better, but there's, some teams are great communicators. Some are not. We are struggling with that right now. So when quick decisions have to be made defensively, sometimes we're not able to do it. And again, some teams can't take advantage of it. Then this team can take advantage of every mistake that you make. And that's why every time we changed defenses, it didn't take them long to figure it out, and they got an easy shot. Some teams, they get like this. So for 3 or 4 possessions, they don't know what you're doing. You got a veteran team like that, And it's always great to listen to your players when you ask them for suggestions. I've gotten pretty good at that. I say, what do you guys think? And it's interesting to hear their suggestions on the bench. Coach, I think we should do this. Okay. And it's almost like they have a mic in our bench because they know exactly what's coming. The other guys. So.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.